I didn't expect my Tuesday morning to feel like stepping into someone else's story. My name is Gideon, 38, and I thought I knew my life. Married to Amara for 12 years, we had a rhythm that worked, or so I believed. We weren't extravagant, but we had routines, laughter at dinner, and small weekend escapes that felt enough. Life was busy, yes, but love had always been our undercurrent. Or at least, I thought it did. I had received her new office address last week, just a few miles from our old apartment. Amara had been excited about the promotion at Stratford Tech, and I, being supportive as always, wanted to see her new workplace for the first time. Nothing unusual there, except the unease that had been settling into me for a few months, small things like phone glances she would hide, quick texts she deleted. I brushed them off, telling myself it was stress, excitement, or just her being her. Tuesday morning arrived, crisp and clear. I parked a block away, heart thumping gently in anticipation. I imagined her greeting me with a proud smile, showing me around her new office. But when I walked through the glass doors, that familiar sense of ease evaporated. The receptionist barely looked up. Directions were vague, like the office didn't expect visitors. I made my way down the hall, passing cubicles that buzzed with low murmurs of productivity. And then I heard it. A faint laughter that made my chest tighten in an unfamiliar way. It was coming from one of the conference rooms, the big glass one at the far end, with blinds half closed. Curiosity propelled me forward. I knocked lightly, expecting her to say, "Gideon, you scared me." But the room was locked. My stomach sank in a way that I hadn't felt since the last time we argued about something trivial months ago, something that still lingered unspoken. I tried the handle. Locked. I pressed my ear to the door, the laughter clearer now, mixed with voices I didn't recognize, professional tones, but casual, too familiar. My chest grew tight, and I stepped back, heart hammering. Amara's laugh, that vibrant, melodic sound I had fallen in love with, wasn't aimed at me. And then I heard him, the CEO, a man I had met once at a company gala, Damien Carlisle. His voice was smooth, confident, the kind that fills a room without effort. And my mind clicked into a cold, uncomfortable clarity. I didn't bang. I didn't yell. I didn't storm. I just stood there, frozen, feeling the years of trust and routine unravel in a moment. The locked door became a metaphor for everything that had been slowly closing between us. The long dinners in silence, the evenings she spent on her phone while I cooked, the subtle withdrawal of affection that I had dismissed as fatigue or distraction. I had been loyal, present, patient, and yet, here was the reality, glaring at me in glass and laughter. I leaned against the wall, breathing shallowly, trying to make sense of it without losing composure. Part of me wanted to retreat, leave, pretend I hadn't seen. But another part, the part that had silently endured neglect and compromise, demanded acknowledgement. I couldn't knock, I couldn't barge, but I needed to confront it in some way. So I stepped away, walking the length of the hall, trying to calm my pulse, every step heavier than the last. The years flashed before me. Our first apartment, painted in soft pastels, late-night talks that lasted until dawn, shared coffee on rainy mornings, the little victories of being together. And I realized how quietly it had all been slipping away, not with a crash or a fight, but in the slow, unnoticed erosion of intimacy. The locked room wasn't just a physical barrier. It was everything I had been ignoring, the emotional doors she had gradually closed, the private spaces of her life that I was now barred from. By the time I returned to the lobby, my hands were shaking slightly. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't demand explanations or apologies. I walked back to my car, each step deliberate, trying to process the weight of clarity. It wasn't anger or betrayal that drove me. It was understanding. Understanding that love doesn't always end in drama or confrontation. Sometimes it ends quietly, in a room you aren't allowed into, in a life that continues without you. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, and let the silence sink in. The air inside the car was thick, filled with the ghosts of what I had assumed was our shared life. And yet, there was a strange, sharp sense of peace too. Not victory, not relief, but clarity. I had been trying to maintain something that existed only in memory, and now, faced with undeniable reality, I had no choice but to accept it. I drove aimlessly at first, letting the city pass by, lights reflecting on rain-slicked streets. Every red light was a pause. Every passing car a reminder that life didn't wait for clarity. I thought about the quiet betrayals, the small lies, the withheld truths, the laughter that had once been ours but now belonged to someone else. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I felt alert, awake, as if the room I couldn't enter had unlocked a door inside me instead. When I returned home that evening, the apartment was silent. The air smelled faintly of her perfume, lingering on fabrics she no longer touched. I didn't wait for a call, a text, or an explanation. I didn't hope she would apologize or justify. I simply acknowledged the reality. She had chosen her path, and I would choose mine. Years of compromise and quiet patience had taught me one undeniable lesson. No love can survive behind locked doors, whether literal or metaphorical. I spent that night alone, reading, listening to music, trying to make sense of my thoughts. Not angry, not vengeful, just aware. Awareness is heavier than anger sometimes, but it is also cleaner. The next morning, I called my brother, Callum, someone I trusted implicitly, and spoke freely about everything I had witnessed. No dramatics, no tears, just facts, and the quiet devastation of understanding that a life I had known was shifting irreversibly. By the end of the week, I made subtle changes, not confrontations, not declarations, but small steps reclaiming my autonomy. Emails went unanswered, phone calls unanswered, physical distance maintained. Every gesture, however small, reaffirmed the truth I now carried. Presence isn't love if it isn't reciprocated, loyalty isn't love if it isn't cherished, and patience is a gift that can only be spent where it is valued. The locked room, the laughter, Damian Carlyle's smooth voice, it wasn't just a betrayal. It was a revelation. It taught me what I had been unwilling to see in the quiet stretches of our years together. I didn't hate her. I didn't crave revenge. I simply recognized the end of something that had been dying quietly, and I embraced the beginning of my own freedom. And in that freedom, I found a new kind of peace, sharper, cleaner, and undeniably mine. By the time the weekend came, I had stopped thinking of Amara in the same domestic, marital terms. She was part of my history, a chapter that had closed quietly and firmly. I focused on the life I still had to build, friends, work, small joys, the kind of laughter that doesn't leave a residue of doubt. And while the memory of that locked room might linger, it no longer held power over me. It was a lesson, not a trap. A reminder that clarity, though painful, is the truest form of love one can give oneself.